chances, obviously. I think we got a chance to do something great with this team. You know, we got a lot of talent, a lot of athleticism. It's just going to come down to, you know, are we able to be that team that can, you know, stick together during the tough times, and that's kind of what I'm interested in. I want to see, you know, our first road game, we face adversity. Do we crack, or do we, you know, come together as a team and have that type of relationship that I was able to see my freshman year with those guys out there on the floor. You know, those guys never cracked. They kept their composure, poised. They usually pulled the games out, and that's the type of team I would like to be this year. Those are the teams that usually go far in the tournament.
In Columbus a few weeks ago, you talked about the Wisconsin game and Wichita State game as being things that are still remembered, talking about whatever. Why is it always the bad moments or memories that are
a lot of guys have a lot of guys back,
are remembered and not
down, and that makes teams tough.
Not that you went to the Elite Eight or why is it
chance to get beat? So you got to come in night in, night out.
I think it's a pride thing, you know. Of course, you know, when you win things, you know, it's not cool to go around and say, yeah, you know, we accomplished this. This is what we got. You know, that's not cool. But yeah, it never satisfied. You're always trying to one up and do better. I think if you win the national title, then yeah, that's going to be something you can bring up as many times, because you know, I don't think people really understand what it takes to win a national championship or even make it to the Final Four. You know, those things are tough, but you're obviously always going to remember, you know, the game that cost you your season, or the game that put you out, or the game where you were humiliated, or, you know, stuff like that. You know, those type of games don't leave you. You think about those games all the time.
Being a senior, do you ever think about your legacy here, what you're leaving behind? And if so, what do you feel like your legacy is?
Brian Rosenthal, the Channel Star Weekend.
Actually, you know, I haven't really, you know, put much, you know, thought into, you know, the legacy I was leaving here. I just, I kind of come into each year trying to figure out what I need to do that year to help this team win games. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if I can just be remembered as the guy who did whatever it took to help his team win, I mean, that's pretty much good enough for me, you know.
Being able to play without your hands, it's definitely. It's a challenge.
I mean, yeah, especially in this type of program, you know,
the ones that
for Ohio State, you know, you get great talent coming in every day. You know, it's kind of hard to find out what separates you from the other talented players, and I think that's kind of has a lot to do with it.
What just not just you and Aaron being the seniors, but a lot of juniors too, just upperclassmen, guys that have been around the program. I mean, how has that made like the first month of practice better compared to previous years? There's just been a lot of turnover and guys leaving the program, younger guys.
Our biggest focus has been.
Maybe you noticed it being like smoother or more.
Well, yeah, I mean, initially we didn't have to start from square one. You know, we kind of picked up a little bit from where we left off. You know, obviously we kind of take a little step back and trying to adjust to the new rules that are in place now. But you know, from you know, last year, the end of the season, I feel like, you know, our train kept rolling a little bit. We didn't have to do some of the drills that we normally do initially off. You know, when you have a new team and you're trying to get defensive positions around down. You know, I think our defense is what makes us as a team. It's our pattern, and I feel like it was this year coming out the gate. It was strong for us. You know, so I'm actually excited to see what we can do in the real game when it's time to guard real players that, you know, don't actually run the plays we know.
Coach said there was a bigger emphasis this offseason on shooting than he's really ever had. Have you noticed already the dividends being paid off from that? Does this feel like a better shooting team than it was a year ago?
Yes, last year, yes, absolutely. But at the same time, I think we still got a long way to go. I mean, obviously we're getting better at it, but you know, I think this year we'll get a chance to show it off, because I think, you know, we'll be sharing the ball and playing more team ball this year, which is going to be exciting for us. I think. You know, we don't really have that. You know. Well, we didn't really have it last year, but we don't have a guy that feels that they have to come out and be that 25-plus points a night guy. So, you know, everybody wants to do their part, and when you got people just, you know, want to play their role, you find out that you got a team of guys that if they do their role every day, you get the job done.
What do you feel you need to do?
Towards the end, we kind of let go of our personal agenda.
You've been inconsistent in games like that, you know, 25 points and then like 6 points. What have you done in the offseason?
That's what we play our best now.
Combat that.
If we buy in, just enjoy the moment.
My whole thing is with the consistency is I've been known to pass up shots or try to be the guy to always make the extra pass, but I've actually been working on my offensive game over the summer and working on my shooting and working on being comfortable out there with my team. I think a lot of it comes to me was being uncomfortable or looking for the okay or the sort of green light to go and do what I know I'm capable of doing. Some games I come out there with the mindset of I'm just gonna do what I do, and then the other games it's like I kind of sit back and wait for him to say do this. But I think this year out the gate is I don't have another chance to wait and ask around. I think it's this year is you do or die. It's the last senior year. If there's any year that I'm going to be able to help this team, it's this year. Obviously, being my last year, so I think I need to help chip in on the offense a lot more, be more consistent with some games, and definitely continue to help this guy out here be a voice out there for senior leadership out there and lead some of the younger guys on the floor.
I think we're excited.
Between you and Aaron and Shannon and Sam, I think a lot of people think this could be probably the best defensive backcourt in the nation. Is that kind of a unique advantage?
Absolutely. Everybody knows that defense translating to offense. A knock on us has been, can they score? Well, we can score because we can play defense. It doesn't really. We don't have to come down and run an offense. If we get a stop, we're usually, we got athletic guys. We can throw the ball up the court and we're dunking at the other end. And I think that'll get the fans going. And the more the fans, give us their energy. We're playing that much harder on defense. And we've seen when we've connected, we've been known to hold teams to maybe 12, 14 points in the first half. When we're rolling like we're supposed to.
Deshaun obviously was great, average 20 points a game and all that, but there were some drawbacks. Just the flow of the offense maybe wasn't what some would like. Did you notice that being completely different so far this year?
Absolutely. It kind of threw off our flow a little bit. People's numbers were down. His numbers were down. And when you do stuff like that, you put shots up and it's not shots that you're supposed to take. It kind of has a way of affecting your consistency or your numbers or what it looks like on paper, But, Sean did some great things for us, and he came through for us in the clutch. So when you got guys like that, it's kind of hard to tell them what not to do because when they do stuff that actually helps the team, it kind of pans out for you. So it's kind of one of those moments where we're like, no, but he makes a shot, and it's like, well, yes. But, sometimes it could be no, and he does not make the shot, and it's like, he chalked that one up. And kind of, have a moment of silence in the locker room, and how
was the scrimmage